Well, we've been talking about all of these provisions. Let me just flash them through for you again so you can see from the issue of local government financial autonomy to the evolution of powers, affirmative action for women in political party administration, restriction of formation of political parties, inclusion of judges of the National Industrial Court in the composition of election tribunals, expansion of the scope of executive immunity. These are areas that were put up for a vote. But you probably will be asking the question that in all of these clauses and all of that, is this the end? No, this is not the end. There is a constitutional provision on how a legislative action on constitutional amendment should go. Let me show you what it means. This is the third reading of it. When it's done, the next stage will be the harmonization of all of these between the two chambers because, you know, they voted in the House and they also voted in the Senate. Both houses will now harmonize, and when they harmonize, they'll put it together and send it to the state houses of assemblies across the 36 states, and the state houses of assembly, according to the provision of the Constitution, will have to pass it by 2/3, just like we have the 2/3 according to Section 9 of the Nigerian Constitution on the issues of amendment. Let's get talking about some of the issues that have been raised. Well, one matter of interest is the position of the Women Bill. Let me allow you to listen to Honorable Femba Jabiamila, the Speaker, when he was reacting to what happened to the Women Bill. What happened to them? Take a listen to him.
We'll put the votes again. Understand that it is this woman, honorable members, if you do your math and you do your statistics, you will understand that it is this woman that come out en masse to vote for you and I. They come out en masse to vote for you and I. You cannot now be seen working against their interests. This particular provision on party administration, I will publish this vote. Honorable colleagues, hey Mohammed, go and take your seat so that we can vote again. We are going to vote again.
Without advocacy, it still did not go through. What a sad day for women interests in our law-making process in Nigeria, despite the advocacy from the wife of the president, who was there at some point. Today, the wife of the vice president, Dolapo Oshibajo, was also there to advocate. Very sad day. She was not happy today. Well, let's get talking. Let's get the experience of a former federal lawmaker, Senator Ayu Arishe. He joins us here. And Cynthia Mbamalu, she works with Yaga Africa, a lawyer and woman advocate. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Perhaps I should begin with Cynthia. You might be smiling when I know you're not happy today. What happened? What do you think happened to the women bills?
I think for us it was disheartening to watch how each bill proposed received a negative vote. So we had 5 bills. The one on citizenship, which basically says that women can confer citizenship to their foreign husbands because Nigerian men can do that to their foreign wives. They voted no. So basically they just told Nigerian women that you're not seen as equal citizens. That was the message to Nigerian women. The second was a bill on the legislative seats, asking or proposing for an amendment to create seats for women in the Senate, in the House, and the state assemblies. This bill also got a no vote. And basically what this bill was supposed to do was to ensure that there would be no time in our history again where you would have assemblies without women. Because currently, 15 states in Nigeria do not have one woman in their state assemblies. We have regions that have no women representatives in the Senate and the House. That bill got a no vote. The other bill was on indigenship, which basically was saying for women who marry men from other states, that they can, after 5 years, after paying tax and all the requirements in the Constitution, can claim the indigenship of that state. And that is because a lot of women, when you marry from another state, and for instance, you want to contest for elections, they will tell you, oh, this is not your state, go to your husband, go back to your state. You go to your state will tell you, no, this is not your state, go back to your husband's state. We have married you off.
I remember the case of the Supreme Court judge, Justice of the Supreme Court from, I think, in Borno State who is married to someone from Ogun State, and she couldn't claim.
Yes, because
you know, these issues have come over and over
that
again.
bill also failed. Then the issue around affirmative action on political party leadership, asking that women should have at least 35% affirmative action. They said no. There was a point of order called asking for an amendment to reduce it to even 20%. It still went no. You see, the other speaker even pleaded at one point on that particular provision. They still voted no for it. And then the provisions on appointment for executive, that's for ministers and commissioners at the state level. So basically, all the proposals on gender failed, and it's just disheartening to Nigerian
I understand
women.
you people are not, I mean, when I say you people, I mean the women folk are not taking it lightly.
No, we're going to the National Assembly tomorrow. We need to be there, to camp there, to march and demand that Nigerian lawmakers respond to us.
Is it not late in the day?
Well, for what matters is we're not taking this lying down, because most times we have every assembly, there are proposals on women. Every alteration, there are proposals for women. They never make it through. This time around, there was some hope, because this time around, it was part of the report submitted to the Senate and the House last week, where the First Lady was actually present with other ministers, with ministers of several bodies to witness that. And there were commitments, there was lobbying, there was advocacy. What was not done?
I'll come back to you, Cynthia, to find out. I mean, we need to do a research why this has been happening. And there's a downward trend or decline in women position in the National Assembly. But Senator, you've been in that allo chamber before. For you today, as a citizen of Nigeria, and hearing and watching those votes being cast, and it was electronic votes. I think in the House of Reps, I didn't know what happened, much of the details of the Senate, or how they voted. But for what happened today in this process, what is the most crucial part of these clauses for you?
Well, first of all, I look at the local government issue. And I have to support Professor Sage. Based on the fact that you can't allocate local governments in a fixative manner. In 2010, we discussed this. You cannot say, look at my state, for example. The governor just had additional local SCDAs.
That's in Ekiti State.
Yes. States cannot grow at the same pace. When you look at a local government and you now realize that suddenly you have a federal university, suddenly you have a teaching hospital, so you have so many things. So by definition of what constitutes a local government, that particular one has grown and it needs to be subdivided. That can only be done at the state level. The federal, when I look at, many times I refer to the practice in the US. I don't know any federal government in America that will create a local government, let's say in the state of Georgia. It cannot be done. It's a state matter. And when you look at it again, because it's a state matter, when you begin to grow, because no state is stationary, you now need subdivisions. But the clause 8, 7 and 8 combined of our Constitution does not allow you to create, it's made it almost impossible to create more local
and
governments.
That's why Lagos, the AG, the case of the AG Lagos versus AG Federation, there was a very, during Tinubu and Obasanjo,
yes,
it was a very tough battle. And
exactly.
no states have been able to do that.
No.
Because the Constitution of the Federal Republic has made it almost impossible for you to alter or add to local government.
Or add to the local government. And the solution again is the federal government having a pause and the states having their own pause. Like I explained, if the state decides to create 1,000 local governments, that's the business of that state. Where they will find the money to fund it is the headache. If you look at it that, okay, the number of local governments you can handle is just 10. Good for it. Then you make provisions, you provide roads, you provide amenities, and not, this is all we are talking about. The federal government cannot come and create or come and start tiling roads in a local government from the federal. So these are some of the anomalies that we saw there.
Let me just remember, because there are other areas, state policing, security, which I would like you to touch on. But let's quickly take another break. And when we come back, this is a very short one. We get to talk more. Stay with us, everyone. So much. Let's get back to Senator Ayarishi and Cynthia Mbamalu. For you, Senator, the agitation for restructuring, like the question I asked Prof earlier, did you see some of these questions being answered?
Very minimally.
We saw establishment of State Security Council.
State Security Council means what?
I mean, there's a National Security Council.
Would you have state police? So that is what everybody has been agitating for.
And that's not included.
I don't know whether the State Security Council is equivalent of that. So I don't know the meaning of what State Security Council means when we're asking for states to be able to have their own police, local governments, if possible, to have their own police. We have it broken down all the way to city police. We copied the American Constitution. It's working for them. Some of these minuses that we've not been able to resolve in our society is why the Constitution is a little bit very controversial. And people keep on agitating for amendment, and we all know what people are asking for. They want security. Everybody wants to be safe, if it is possible.
But our Constitution is very stringent on how you can amend the areas. At least, I mean, you need for fifth in some of these, the National Youth Service Corps Decree, the Public Complaints Commission Act, the National Security Agency Act, the Land Use Act, as much as he made some sections, early sections in the, of the Constitution very difficult.
Yes.
So he made some of these, and so the question would be, if you want to do state policing, how easy would the Constitution? The Constitution does not even give you that elasticity to be able to do so.
Well, this is the process. You amend the Constitution. The moment you remove that clause and replace it, it's amended. When this Constitution was put together, we did not have the kind of challenges we have today. And again, the population of this country continues to grow and multiply. So will the social problems continue to expand? And you now look at it that, can we continue to say it's no longer feasible for the federal to control the policing of the state or the local government? We've made it very clear. If, of course, you have the FBI, you have state police, I mean, maybe
county police,
you have county police,
in
you have
the
city
US,
police.
and
But
some other
any moment the federal police comes in, they establish jurisdiction. And that is the minimum we're expecting here. Nobody says we should eradicate the federal police. But let the states be able to ensure that the people are secure.
Cynthia, you're one of those who've spoken about this process for a long time. But for you, today, what is perhaps one most crucial part of these almost, I think it's almost 80 or 90 clauses that were put up for today?
Yeah, about something clauses. So the thing is, besides the women bills that all failed, because that it was heartbreaking. I felt like the country did not want women to exist in the country, which is really sad. But I think we made some progress. So local government autonomy is actually an important conversation we need to have. And I know there are conversations around, do we need that in the Constitution? But I think we need to understand that every Constitution is a reflection of the reality of the nature of the particular country. So while our Constitution is modeled after the US Constitution, but we do not adopt everything per se. So for instance, if you go to the US, states have their Constitution. We don't have that here.
And
we
have
the
Supreme Courts
and they have that
judicial system.
The judicial system, the way they even appoint members of their judiciary, right? And the way it is appointed, some at the state level, they haven't elected, they contest for it. But we don't have that here. Why? Because our reality is different. And in a multi-ethnic nation, conversation around federalism caters to the needs of smaller groups at the local level, which is what we have. In a state, you can have up to 5, 6, 7 ethnic groups in a particular state. Now, what does local government autonomy do? The provision now, what it does is to recognize this as a tier of government, this proposal in the Constitution, no longer what we had before. Because what we had before made it subject to the states, which is why you go to some states, elections to local governments are not held 5, 6, 7, 10 years. You don't have elections at that level, just appointments. But what this does now is, with this proposal, if it passes at the state level, it recognizes the local government as an independent tier of government which exists and has its own administration and tenure of office, because it also proposes for 3 years, which is important because it brings governance closer to the people. Our reality is we currently have a system where state governors are almost dictatorial and imperial leaders who control everything at the state level. We still talk about state assemblies independence, not to mention local government. So it's important we have this in the bill that is proposed. And I think something else we need to understand is that while there are provisions in this bill which thankfully did not make it through. But I think an important point was made by the Prof that the National Assembly needs to learn to be more nationalistic in its thinking, or rather to focus on national interest than its personal interest. Some proposals that made it from the committee to the plenary were not a reflection of proposals from the public hearing that citizens engaged in. So it's almost like it's only the things that favor them that would make it in. I'm not quick to celebrate the proposal that life pension for personnel failed. I'm not quick to celebrate it, but I'm glad I was glad it was. But it was only shut down because most of the lawmakers did not think they would benefit from it. So it was very, very...
Senator, you know this process very well. You've gone through it. Do you see any problem coming in the way of these votes when it goes into the state House of Assemblies? Any problem?
Yes, because the governors control the state assemblies, pure and simple.
So that's another problem.
And it's whatever they do not want will certainly not sail through. So if we are talking of financial autonomy for the local governments, we did that in 2010. Only 23 states voted. When would the National Assembly?
And for 2/3, you need almost 20...
At least 24.
24.
At least.
Exactly. We couldn't get it done because the governors did not support most of those amendments. And I'm suspecting that some of this will still go there and will not make it. The only reason why I believe the National Assembly, I believe certainly there was no reason for them to retain immunity.
To retain what?
To retain immunity. Not to talk less of the asking for immunity for themselves.
An expansion,
so, but trust me,
the scope of immunity.
If it had covered everybody, then the result we are discussing now will not be what we are discussing. If they had said every National Assembly member should have immunity or pension, who would not want pension? But when they keep on making the mistake that is only the maybe 4 presiding officers, they will continue to get this guy. It's not that they don't want it.
All right.
It's because it doesn't cover everybody.
Thank you so much. Senator Ayarisha, always a pleasure sharing your experience and the knowledge of the electoral process with us and how this is panned out. Thank you so much, Cynthia, for coming. I appreciate it.